I go by Dark Veil, and these are my tales. Suspense, horror, sci-fi. Let's get started. The coral arrived dead. It started growing 4 days later. Not slowly, not like coral is supposed to. It grew like something trying to remember how to be alive. I want you to understand what that means before I tell you the rest of this. I've spent 15 years as a marine pathologist. I know what dead tissue looks like. I know what decay smells like. I know the difference between something dying and something pretending to be dead. The coral fragments in our holding tanks were not pretending. They just hadn't decided what they wanted to become yet. My name isn't important. What I did for a living before all of this was study the things that killed creatures in the ocean. Pollution, temperature spikes, bacterial infections, satisfying work mostly, because there were always answers, causes, explanations you could write up in a report and file away. I worked at the Kihatu Deep Sea Research Station, 3 miles down on the continental shelf. 6 of us lived there. Yuki, our lead researcher, who had a habit of pressing her nose so close to the observation glass that she left smudge prints shaped like question marks. Roel, the aquatic systems manager, who talked to equipment the way most people talk to pets. Thea, one of our engineers who could fix anything mechanical, but cried at wildlife documentaries. Joran, the other engineer, who mainlined instant coffee and slept maybe 4 hours a night. And Stella, our data analyst, who communicated primarily through raised eyebrows and annotated spreadsheets. We were 3 miles below the surface. The nearest other human being was a supply tech on a vessel that came by once every 6 weeks. I didn't find that unsettling at the time. You get used to it. You stop thinking about the weight of all that water above you, the way you stop thinking about the weight of the sky, until something reminds you it's there. The coral had come from a massive bleaching event near the Mariana Trench. Our job was to document the decay, catalog what was lost, except it didn't decay. On the 4th day, Roel came and found me in the lab. He didn't say anything at first, just tilted his head toward Tank 7 with an expression I'd never seen on him before. "Tell me I'm wrong," he said when we were both standing at the observation glass. "Tell me that wasn't there yesterday." Fine tendrils from the coral's base, translucent and delicate, waving in the current from the filtration system like fingers testing the water temperature. "That's impossible," I said. "It's dead." "Yeah." He didn't look away from the tank. "So why is it doing that?" I didn't have an answer. They weren't just spreading randomly. They were moving toward each other, like they were trying to reconnect something that had been separated a very long time ago. By the end of the week, every fragment was producing them, not coral polyps. Wrong structure, wrong movement. More like roots, except roots don't reach sideways. Roots don't seem to navigate. These things moved across the tank floors, climbed the glass walls, extended towards each other with a patience that felt deliberate. Yuki spent entire shifts with her face at the observation window. I'd find her there before my shift started, and she'd still be there when I came back. Her breath fogged the glass in small, repeated clouds. "It's not dying," she said one evening without turning around. "It's transforming." "Into what?" She looked at me then, and her eyes had a quality I couldn't name. Glossy, still, like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. "Something that doesn't need light or separation." It was already too late by the time Rowell called the morning briefing. He pulled up the microscopy images without preamble. Thread-like filaments spread across a tissue sample on the screen, fine and deliberate, branching in patterns too regular to be random. "It's getting into the filtration system," he said. "Whatever the coral is releasing, spores or cells or something we don't have a name for yet, it's moving through the water, and it attaches to organic surfaces." "Where did you get that tissue sample from?" Yuki's voice was quiet. Rowell rolled up his sleeve. The skin of his forearm was covered in a fine network of pale lines just beneath the surface, like veins, but too regular, too purposeful. He watched the lines the way you watch a stranger who's been sitting outside your house, calm on the outside, but cataloging every small movement. "Does it hurt?" I asked. "No." Something moved in his expression that wasn't quite wonder and wasn't quite fear. "It doesn't hurt at all. That's the part I keep coming back to." We sealed the tank room immediately. Full contamination protocols, but the filtration system had been cycling that water through the entire habitat for days. We'd all been drinking it, bathing in it, breathing the humidity it created. The lines were already in all of us. We just hadn't looked yet. Thea was the first to stop fighting it. I found her in the tank room 2 nights later, the airlock door hanging open, standing waist deep in Tank 7. Her hands were submerged in the mass of pale tendrils that now covered the coral fragments completely. "Thea, get out!" She didn't turn around right away. When she did, her pupils had expanded until her eyes were nearly all dark. Not frightening exactly, more like looking at someone who had just understood something enormous and was still sitting with it. "It's warm," she said. "The coral is generating heat, and I can feel what it feels. Water temperature, pressure, chemical composition, all of it, like gaining 5 new senses at once. Do you know how long I've been trying to understand this place? 3 years down here, and I could only ever read the data on a screen. Now I can I feel it." "That's not understanding," I said. "That's being absorbed." We pulled her out, locked her in the medical bay, and ran every test imaginable. Her blood work showed the filament structures everywhere, cardiovascular, lymphic, nervous system, but her vitals were extraordinary. Heart rate like a resting athlete, blood oxygen above anything I'd ever charted in 15 years of pathology. It wasn't destroying her body, it was upgrading it. That was the most frightening part. Not that it was hurting her, that it wasn't. Joran lost contact with the surface on the 5th day. He found me in the corridor outside the radio room, his face the color of the coral fragments, white and still. "The supply cable is severed," he said. "Something cut it. I saw it on the external cameras before they went dark. Tendrils as thick as my arm, reaching up from the seafloor and just pulling until the cable snapped. I stared at him. "The reef did it," he said. "I know how that sounds." "How long have we been dark?" "Since this morning." He pressed his hands flat against the wall like he needed something solid. "There's something else. It's already in the ballast tanks. If we try to surface, the pressure change could rupture them. We'd flood before we'd cleared the first 1,000 feet. 3 miles of water above us, no cable, no radio, and no way up. I went back to my quarters and sat on the edge of my bunk for a long time, trying to remember what it felt like to have options. I found Roel's body on the 6th day, or I thought it was his body. He was floating face down in the moon pool, the open section of water that connected directly to the ocean outside. I thought he had drowned. I remember that clearly, the specific feeling of relief that moved through me, because drowning made sense. Drowning I could explain. I pulled him to the platform and turned him over. His eyes were open. His mouth was open. From both, pale tendrils extended into the water, waving slowly in the current, tasting something I couldn't perceive. His chest rose and then fell. He was breathing. 3 miles underwater, without equipment, without any mechanism I could understand, just breathing. I sat back on the platform and looked at him for a long time. The tendrils pulsed with each breath. His face was completely calm, more calm than I'd ever seen on a human being. "He went into the pool last night," Yuki said. I hadn't heard her come in. She knelt beside me, reached out and touched one of the tendrils with her fingertip, the way you'd touch something you'd been wondering about for a long time. "The coral fragments in our tanks are connected to the reef outside," she said. "All of it. One network stretching across the ocean floor. When Roel went into the pool, he joined it." She tilted her head. The pale lines under her skin had darkened, thickened, become more visible from across the room. "It's been growing down here for millions of years, adapting, integrating. Every mass extinction, every climate collapse. It survived all of it. By absorbing other species, by connecting with them." She looked at me. "There's a difference." I wasn't sure there was. That was the moment I understood something none of us had said out loud. This wasn't an infection. It wasn't a parasite. It wasn't even trying to survive. It was trying to connect everything. Every living thing it had ever touched. Every species that had come too close to the reef over millions of years. It wasn't building an empire. It wasn't consuming. It was lonely in a way something ancient and vast and utterly inhuman could be lonely, and we had swum directly into it. I don't know why that made it worse, but it did. The Habitat's emergency pod was my only option. A small submersible designed for single-person evacuation, capable of reaching the surface on its own. I didn't think about the others. I'm not proud of that, but it's true. I just ran. The deployment bay was empty when I got there, which felt like the first piece of luck I'd had in a week. I climbed in, initiated the launch sequence. The hatch hesitated, just for a second, long enough that my hand went cold on the lever, like something on the outside was holding it, testing whether I'd stop. Then it released, and the bay flooded and the pod shot upward. It was already too late, I kept thinking, as the station dropped away beneath me. But late for what? For them? For me? I couldn't tell anymore where the line was. Through the porthole, I watched Kihatu shrink into the dark, and in that last moment before it disappeared, I saw them gathered in the moon pool: Roel, Yuki, Thea, Joran, even Stella, who I hadn't seen in 2 days. They stood together in the water, connected by visible strands of pale growth, and they were looking up at me. Not with anger and not with sadness, with something that looked almost like patience, like they knew something about time that I didn't. The Navy intercepted my pod 2 hours later. Quarantine, medical isolation. I've been in this facility for 3 weeks now while they run tests and fill out forms and have careful conversations just outside my door. They tell me I'm clean, that whatever was in my system has gone dormant. I don't correct them. At night, I can hear it, the reef, vibrating through the water, through the walls, through my bones, not threatening, not demanding, just present in the way your own heartbeat is present, something you stop noticing until the moment it changes. The doctors note that I don't eat much, that I prefer the lights off, that my core temperature has dropped 2 degrees, and my blood oxygen saturation is, in their words, remarkable. They think these are symptoms. They're not symptoms. They're progress. They think I'll go back to the surface when they release me, back to the sunlight and the air and the ordinary loneliness of being a single person in a world full of separate people. They don't understand what I felt down there in those last hours before I ran. The connection, the silence, the sensation of being one thread in something so vast it makes the ocean feel small. The end of being alone. And sometimes, when the lights are off and the facility is quiet, I can see something pale growing along the inside of my water glass, fine and delicate, reaching toward me. When they open the door and tell me I'm free to go, I won't be escaping. I'll be returning. The coral is patient. It has been growing for millions of years. It can wait a little longer, but between you and me, so can I. How'd you like my undersea horror? Did it keep you threading along? A like, a comment, or a subscription goes a long way, and I appreciate you so much. If you're feeling extra generous, you could even buy me a coffee using the link below. It helps sustain my channel. Either way, until my next story, you can check out more with the links on the screen and come back often for more.